Hey everyone, my name is Perry, and welcome back to the Cassette Phase. So I hope that you're all having a good week so far. Thankfully, the weekend is upon us. And I feel like the topic of today's video is going to feel pretty weekend appropriate. Because today, we're going to talk about good old-fashioned road trips. And really, as is usually the case around here, we're going to focus in on how we experienced road trips as kids in the 80s and the early 90s. And let me just start by saying that I really love road trips today as an adult. In fact, one of the items on my bucket list is to take a really long, at least a month long, but maybe even like an entire summer, road trip where I have a very, very loose plan, if I have a plan at all. You know, there are a lot of national parks that I've never seen that I would love to see, but beyond that, I want to visit a lot of the filming locations from my favorite TV shows and movies that I watched as a kid. You know, I want to see the parts of Oregon where they filmed The Goonies. I want to retrace the steps that Fred Savage and Jenny Lewis took in The Wizard. And all along the way, I want to stop at every unique roadside attraction that I see. You know, every vintage diner, every cool looking antique store, anything and everything that just strikes me as interesting or nostalgic. And trust me when I tell you that if I'm still doing the cassette phase when this dream becomes a reality, I will bring you all along every step of the way. Now, I recently took a little road trip up to Arkansas, which isn't far from me. I live in Texas. But there were definitely some nostalgic elements of that trip that I want to share with you all. But before we do that, we are going to do our cassette of the day, of course. And I also want to take some time to reminisce about all those old road trips gone by and talk about what road trips meant to us as kids. So it's going to be a fun, nostalgic glimpse into the rearview mirror today. Sound like fun to you? Come hang out. Okay everyone, welcome back to the Ottoman, and welcome to another great day here in the den. Today's TV show of choice, we've got some Step by Step, one of the great TGIF classic sitcoms from back in the 90s. And before we get back to talking some more about road trips, we're going to do our cassette of the day. And I imagine that if you all are thinking that I'm going to stick with a theme for the video today, which I definitely am, you're probably already guessing what movie we're going to talk about. We do have a VHS tape here, a really cool VHS tape, and I'm going to show you why. It's got some awesome features on it that I love. But it's for a 1983 movie, part of a series, I guess part of a franchise, you could say, and perfect for the theme of today's video. You already knew it. We've got National Lampoon's Vacation. Is this the ultimate 80s road trip movie? There are a lot of great ones, but this one is definitely up there. Now, anyone that's been with the channel a little while knows that I prefer Christmas Vacation. You know, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation is one of my favorite movies of all time. It's one of those Christmas flicks that's really kind of good enough and comforting enough to watch any time of year. But you know, this is where we first got started with the Griswolds and Cousin Eddie and the whole gang. Even though they changed the actors for the kids each movie, you know, which is kind of a funny story in itself. But now, the cover art is cool, and I know nothing about that National Lampoon's magazine that these movies were based on. You know, based on stories out of that. I need to try to track some of those down. That might be interesting, but. Love that cover art. Really love this previewed sticker here. $4.99, quality guaranteed. Now, this was a previously viewed Blockbuster tape. Check it out. I wish I knew what location this was from, but still cool. What a memorable and quotable movie. They all are, you know. One of my favorite lines, before I show you the rest of this tape, is when Rusty is talking to his cousin and he's asking him about Atari games, video games. Like, you got Space Invaders? And he's like, no. He's like, okay, well, do you have Asteroids? And he goes, no. Dad does, though. Can't even sit down some days. I don't know why. That cracks me up every single time. I like stupid jokes like that, though. I think it's European Vacation where he's on the plane, and the stewardess asks him, about his drink. She's like, do you want it in the can? And he goes, no, thanks. I'll just drink it right here. That's another one that cracks me up every time. But anyway, enough with my bad jokes. Let's take a look at the tape, because it looks, perfectly normal there, but it has this awesome label on it. Who remembers this? We saw this label countless times, did we not? Please remember to rewind. And I have to double check myself, but I don't think Blockbuster ever said, be kind, rewind. I could be wrong about that. I am a moderate VHS tape collector, but it seems like anytime you see Be Kind, Rewind, it's usually from one of the mom and pop video stores. I don't know if there was like a trademark on that, or, it probably did show up on some Blockbuster tapes and I just haven't had the luck of coming across one myself. But either way, one of the best old tapes in the collection, perfect for today's conversation, which we're about to get into more here in a second. Anyone else a fan of The Vacation, the original? Great road trip movie, great summer movie. It's on TV all the time. I'm sure you can catch it anywhere you want streaming. But yeah, if you haven't watched it in a while, go back and revisit. In the spirit of today's video, go back and revisit 1983's Vacation. All right, welcome back to the den, where today we're gonna fire up the old family station wagon, roll down the windows, manually of course, and head back to a time when road trips were less about GPS and playlists and more about paper maps and sandwiches stored in Ziploc bags and cross-country adventures as viewed from the back seat. So buckle up, grab your Walkman, and think back to a time where there were smells in the air of fruit roll-ups and Pop-Tarts and car upholstery, and hang out with me for the next 500 miles or so. And let's start with the car itself. If you were lucky, your family had one of those station wagons with the wood paneling on the sides. The kind of car that looks like it was designed by a furniture company. Or maybe a beat up old Dodge Caravan, or a boxy old Chevy Caprice Classic with the vinyl seats that would absolutely fry your legs in the summertime. For us, it was a dark red Plymouth Reliant station wagon with dark red interior. We had a lot of good adventures in that car. But if you had siblings like I did, the seating arrangement was critical. Everyone fought for the best seat, which ironically didn't really exist. There was no best seat. There was really just the less horrible seats. And the very back, like the back, like facing the wrong way in a third row seat, that was like solitary confinement. But it was also the only way to get some peace at times. And also, if you were stopped for a picnic, that was a great place to play a game of Uno or Go Fish. And let's be honest, back then, seatbelts were kinda optional. And by optional, I mean they were wedged so deep between the seats that no one could even find them. And thinking about entertainment options on these road trips, today's kids have tablets with streaming services and noise-canceling headphones, and even in-car Wi-Fi. We had nothing. Well, maybe a coloring book, or some Mad Libs, or if you were lucky, one of those little clear plastic maze games with the metal balls that would never quite find their way into the holes. So for us, entertainment came in different forms. The old classic was looking out the window, or you could just annoy your siblings, or you could look through your parents' tape collection for anything halfway decent to listen to. And for many, bands like the Eagles and Chicago and Fleetwood Mac made up kind of the holy trinity of road trip soundtracks. For our family, it was more about the Grateful Dead, Tom Petty, and the Beatles. And what's funny is I actually love all of those artists now. And to pass the time, we would play car games, right? The license plate game was a classic. where you would spot all the different states and pretend like you were keeping track. Or even like I Spy was popular, which that game usually ended with someone saying, "I spy something gray," and it was always just the road every time. And who could forget about the alphabet game? You know, finding letters on signs in order from A to Z, which was kind of fun until you got to Q or even Z and realized, I don't really like this game anymore. Okay, so let's talk about snacks, a crucial element to any road trip back in the day. And this was before we cared about things like sugar content and preservatives. You know, we always had those cylinder-shaped cans of Planters cheese balls, usually a few cans of Shasta in various flavors, plenty of granola bars, and fruit roll-ups, yes, always. Real fruit, sometimes. And then there was the occasional fast food stop, usually dictated by the nearest roadside billboard. And McDonald's was a common one. You know, those were everywhere. If you saw the golden arches on the horizon, that was kind of like a little bit of an oasis, because not only were you going to get some McNuggets or a cheeseburger, but you were also going to get a little Happy Meal toy to entertain you for the rest of the trip. But sometimes you'd stop at a hole-in-the-wall diner for some local flavor, where the menu was laminated and the tables were covered in those vinyl red and white checkered tablecloths. I actually love places like that now. Now, you can't go on a road trip without encountering at least a few rest stops. And these were kind of a mixed bag. You know, sometimes they were state-run facilities that had, you know, pretty clean restrooms and vending machines and all kinds of maps on the wall and you know, brochures everywhere. And usually the faint smell of like bleach or Pine Sol. Other times, it was a gas station bathroom that looked like a scene out of a horror movie. No soap, you know, a hand dryer that barely blew any air, and some questionable graffiti that made deep philosophical statements. If you were lucky, you'd stop somewhere that had a souvenir section with like little glass snow globes or postcards or those miniature little personalized license plates that had your name on them. Unless your name was something like Perry, and then good luck. And especially when we were really young, every road trip seemed like it had a breaking point, right? Usually around hour 6, where everyone was tired and everyone was cranky and everyone was kind of questioning the meaning of life at that point. Someone was crying, someone was sticky, someone was swearing under their breath, and the air was thick with a growing sense of regret. But just when it felt like it couldn't possibly get any worse, you see it. The mountain range, the ocean, grandma's house, the theme park billboard, the destination, the glorious destination, and suddenly all hope returned. And you did it. You made it. You had finally arrived at that destination. Maybe it was a relative's house, or a beach motel with a broken ice machine, or a rented cabin that smelled like bug spray. Whatever it was, you had made it. And despite the pain and the boredom and the seatbelt burns, you were there. You'd survived an 80s road trip. And strangely enough, it was kind of awesome. Now looking back, these road trips were not perfect. Far from it. You know, they were loud, messy, uncomfortable, and if we're being honest, a little dangerous by today's standards, but they were also epic and full of bonding and inside jokes and family stories that live on for decades. It was analog adventure at its finest. No screens, just scenery. No GPS, just gas station maps and a parent who insisted that they knew a shortcut. And no curated playlists, just the repeated chorus of Running Down a Dream as you watched the sunset from the back seat. And somehow, in the middle of all that chaos, we were just living, right? Living life and making memories that would stay with us forever. And it's fun to think about stuff like this, isn't it? And if you enjoy memories like these, you're in the right place, because I love talking about them. So now I want to take you briefly through my most recent road trip And I'm going to stop yapping here in just a minute and just roll the footage and let the nostalgic music play. But some of the things that you'll see here include vintage soda vending machines, forest hikes and swimming holes that make you feel like you're living in a real-life Legend of Zelda, an old mall that I used to visit as a kid that's been kind of refreshed and updated a little bit, but still feels really 80s, and any other fun, nostalgic adventures that I want to share with you guys. So I hope you enjoy it. And there we are. So I hope that you all enjoyed this look back at the nostalgic highways and turnpikes of our past. And if you did, consider subscribing. Also, don't forget to like the video, but only if you actually liked the video. But for now, and as always, relax. Enjoy life and be kind. We'll see you in the next one.